Why not me? The words hung in the air between us like shattered glass. My neighbor Ethan stood in my doorway at midnight, his chest rising and falling with each ragged breath, his eyes red-rimmed and desperate. Rain dripped from his dark hair, soaking through his gray t-shirt. And I realized he must have run through the storm to get here. Behind me, my apartment was still decorated with the remnants of the blind date.
Oh.
I'd just returned from the cologne I'd carefully chosen. The pressed shirt draped over my chair, the tie I'd wrestled with for 20 minutes, but all of that felt like it belonged to a different universe now. Because Ethan was looking at me like I'd just ripped his heart out with my bare hands. I don't understand what I started. My voice barely a whisper. Don't. His voice cracked, raw and broken. Don't pretend you don't know what I'm asking. Ryan, I've watched you get ready for dates with women for 2 years. 2 years of living next door to you, of late-night conversations on your balcony, of sharing takeout and watching movies until 3 a.m., 2 years of pretending I didn't feel what I feel, 2 years of dying a little bit every time you smiled at me like I was just your friend. I stepped closer. Water pooling on my hardwood floor, I could smell the familiar scent of his soap mixed with rain and something raw and honest. So tell me, why her? Why any of them? Why not me? My heart was hammering so hard I thought it might burst through my ribs. The question echoed in my mind. Unlocking something I'd kept buried so deep, I'd convinced myself it didn't exist, the day I met Ethan Carter. I was wrestling a couch up 3 flights of stairs and losing badly. It was my first day in the Riverside apartments, and I was quickly realizing that moving without professional help had been a terrible decision. The couch was stuck at an awkward angle, my arms were shaking, and I was pretty sure I'd pulled something in my back. Need a hand? I looked up to find a guy around my age, maybe a bit older, standing at the top of the stairs. He was tall, with dark hair that looked like he'd run his hands through it a few times. Wearing running shorts and a tank top that showed off athletic arms. His green eyes were bright with amusement as he took in my struggle. I've got it, I grunted, trying to adjust my grip and nearly dropping the whole thing. Yeah, you definitely don't. He jogged down the stairs and grabbed the other end before I could protest. On 3, 1, 2, 3, together. We maneuvered the couch up the remaining stairs and through the door of apartment 3B. I was breathing hard, sweating through my shirt and feeling incredibly grateful and embarrassed in equal measure. Thanks, I managed. I'm Ryan Mitchell. Just moving in, obviously. What? Ethan Carter. I'm in 3C, right next door. He extended his hand, and when I shook it, I noticed how warm his palm was, how firm his grip. Welcome to Riverside. It's a pretty quiet building, mostly young professionals and grad students. Which are you? I asked, genuinely curious. Grad student. Architecture program at the university. You just graduated, actually. I'm starting remote work as a graphic designer next week. I looked around my apartment boxes everywhere, furniture in all the wrong places. The overwhelming task of unpacking looming before me, though right now I'm questioning all my life choices. Ethan laughed, and something about the sound made my chest feel lighter. First time living alone? Is it that obvious? Only because I had the exact same panic attack when I moved in 2 years ago. He glanced at his watch. Look, I was about to grab some lunch. There's a great sandwich place 2 blocks over. My treat as a welcome to the neighborhood thing. You look like you could use a break. Should have said no. I had so much to do, so much to unpack. But there was something about Ethan, something warm and genuine, that made me want to say yes. Sure, I agreed. Let me just change my shirt. Take your time. I'll be in the hallway. That lunch turned into a 3-hour conversation. We talked about everything: his architecture projects, my design portfolio, our favorite movies, our worst dating disasters. Ethan had this way of listening that made you feel like you were the only person in the world. He'd lean forward, make eye contact, ask follow-up questions that showed he was really paying attention. By the time we walked back to the apartments, I felt like I'd known him for years instead of hours. Thanks for today, I said as we stood outside our doors. I really needed that. Anytime. Ethan smiled, and I noticed for the first time that he had a small scar above his left eyebrow. Hey, if you need help with anything else, moving furniture, figuring out where stuff is around here, just knock. I'm usually home in the evenings. I might take you up on that. I hope you do. There was something in the way he said it, something I didn't quite understand, but that made my pulse quicken slightly. Then he was gone, disappearing into his apartment, and I was left standing in the hallway, wondering why I felt disappointed that our afternoon had ended. The balconies were what really started it. Both our apartments had small balconies that faced the city, separated by a thin divider that you could easily see and talk over. I discovered this my third night in the apartment when I stepped outside with a beer, trying to decompress after a stressful first day of work. How'd the job go? Ethan's voice came from the other side of the divider. I jumped, nearly dropping my beer, then laughed at myself. It went okay. Lots of orientation stuff, meeting the team virtually. Still feels surreal to be working from home. We'll get used to it. Can be isolating, though. He appeared then, leaning against his side of the railing, so we could see each other properly. He had reading glasses on, which I hadn't seen before, and was holding a textbook. I'm out here most nights, when the weather's decent. Good place to study. Won't I be disturbing you then? Nah, I like the company. Gets too quiet in my head sometimes. And just like that, it became our routine. I'd finish work around 6, Ethan would wrap up his classes by 7, and we'd both end up on our balconies. Sometimes we'd talk for hours. Sometimes we'd sit in comfortable silence, him studying, me sketching or reading. It was easy, effortless, like we'd been doing it forever. I learned that Ethan was 25, from a small town upstate, and had come to the city for his graduate program. He was passionate about sustainable architecture, loved terrible sci-fi movies, and had a younger sister he called every Sunday. He ran every morning, that's why he'd been in running clothes when we matanned. Had a habit of stress baking. At midnight, when his projects got overwhelming, telling me there's a chance of random cookies at midnight? I asked one evening. It's been known to happen, though my last batch was pretty questionable. I think I forgot the sugar. How do you forget the sugar? It was 2 a.m. and I'd been drafting for 6 hours straight. My brain was mush. He grinned sheepishly. Want to come over and help me eat the evidence? They're not terrible if you dunk them in milk. I ended up in Ethan's apartment for the first time that night. It was the mirror image of mine, but felt completely different, warmer somehow. The walls were covered with his architectural sketches, beautiful detailed drawings of buildings that didn't exist yet. Models filled every available surface: houses, bridges, entire city blocks rendered in miniature. Books were stacked everywhere on sustainable design, urban planning, architectural history. This is amazing, I said, picking up a model of a house that seemed to be built entirely around natural light. Did you make all of these? Most of them. It's how I think building things with my hands helps me solve problems in my head. He handed me a glass of milk and a suspiciously flat cookie. Fair warning, these are pretty bad. He wasn't wrong. The cookies were terrible. But we ate them anyway, laughing about cooking disasters and college mistakes. I realized I was having more fun than I'd had in months. There was something about being around Ethan that made everything feel lighter, easier, like I could breathe deeper. Can I show you something? Ethan asked suddenly. He seemed nervous, which was unusual for him. Of course. He led me to his spare bedroom, which he'd converted into a studio. On a large drafting table was a massive projector, community center design that incorporated green spaces, natural lighting, and what looked like rooftop gardens. This is my thesis project, he explained. A community center for a low-income neighborhood. The goal is to create a space that's both functional and beautiful. That serves the community's needs while being environmentally sustainable. His voice was passionate as he pointed out different features. See here? This is a rainwater collection system. And these panels are solar, but designed to look like part of the aesthetic rather than an afterthought. Ethan, this is incredible. Meant it. The design was beautiful, thoughtful, clearly the result of hundreds of hours of work. You're really talented. He ducked his head, clearly pleased, but embarrassed. Thanks. I've been working on it for months. Sometimes I'm not sure if it's brilliant or completely insane. It's brilliant, I said firmly. Trust me. He looked at me then, really looked at me, and something passed between us. Something I didn't have a name for, but that made my heart skip a beat. Then he smiled, breaking the moment. Come on, let's see if we can salvage these cookies with ice cream. By the time I'd been living at Riverside for 2 months, Ethan had become my best friend. It happened so naturally, I didn't even notice until one day I realized he was the first person I wanted to tell when something good happened, and the first person I wanted to see when something went wrong. We fell into rhythms. Morning coffee on the balcony before his runs, lunch together a few times a week, sometimes at restaurants, sometimes cooking in one of our apartments. Evenings on the balcony turned into late nights watching movies, introducing each other to our favorites. Weekends were for exploring the city, finding the best coffee shops and bookstores and hidden parks. You know what I've noticed? My sister Emma said during one of our video calls. She'd been watching me with a knowing look for the past 10 minutes, while I told her about the architecture museum Ethan had taken me to. You smile differently when you talk about Ethan. Do you mean? I mean, you get this look on your face, softer, happier. You never looked like that when you talked about any of your college friends. That's because Ethan's easy to be around. No drama, no pressure. Just comfortable. Comfortable, Emma repeated, in a tone that suggested she didn't quite believe that was all it was. Well, whatever it is, I'm glad you have a good friend there. You were always kind of a loner in college. After we hung up, I found myself thinking about what she'd said. Did I smile differently when I talked about Ethan? I pulled up my phone, scrolling through photos. There were dozens from the past 2 months, Ethan and me at the architecture museum, at the coffee shop that had become our regular spot, on a hiking trail we'd found outside the city. In every photo, I was smiling. Really smiling, not the awkward half smile I usually gave cameras. And in several of them, I was looking at Ethan instead of the camera. Looking at him with an expression that, now that I was paying attention, seemed almost fond. Too fond. Definitely more fond than you'd look at a regular friend. I locked my phone quickly, an uncomfortable feeling settling in my chest. No, Emma was reading too much into things. Ethan was my friend. My best friend. The fact that I enjoyed spending time with him, that I looked forward to seeing him every day, that I'd rather hang out with him than do almost anything else, that was all just normal friendship stuff, right? Ryan, you need to start dating. I looked up from my laptop to find Ethan standing on his balcony, arms crossed, wearing that expression he got when he'd made a decision about something. Excuse me. Dating, going out with people, maybe finding a girlfriend. You've been here 3 months, and as far as I can tell, you haven't been on a single date. I've been busy, I said defensively. New job, new city, getting settled excuses. You're 20 years old, Ryan. You should be out there meeting people, having experiences. Not spending every single evening hanging out with your neighbor. Something about his tone stung. I thought you liked hanging out with me. I do. Too much, probably, he said it quietly, almost to himself, then seemed to shake himself. My point is, you're young and single and living in a city full of opportunities. You should take advantage of that. What about you? You're not dating anyone either? That's different. How is it different? Ethan was quiet for a long moment, and when he spoke, his voice was carefully neutral. It just is. Look, there's this girl in my urban planning class, Melissa. She asked me about you the other day, saw us at that coffee shop. She thinks you're cute. Ethan, I'm going to give her your number. You should take her out, see if there's chemistry. She's nice, smart, funny. You'd probably like her. Before I could protest further, he'd gone back inside, sliding his door shut with a finality that felt like more than just ending a conversation. I sat there alone on my balcony, confused and hurt and not entirely sure why. Why did the thought of going on a date with some girl I'd never met feel so wrong? And why had Ethan seemed almost angry when he suggested it? His balcony stayed empty for the next 3 nights. We still saw each other, quick hellos in the hallway, brief exchanges by the mailboxes, but something had shifted. The easy comfort between us had been replaced with a tension I didn't understand. On the 4th night, there was a knock on my door. Ethan stood there holding a pizza box and wearing an apologetic expression. I'm sorry, he said before I could speak. I was an asshole. I had no right to tell you how to live your life. Why did you? I asked, taking the pizza box and stepping aside to let him in. "Really, Ethan? Why did you suddenly decide I need to be dating?" He was quiet as we settled on my couch, the pizza between us. "Finally, because I was worried I was holding you back. That you were spending all your time with me and missing out on other things? Other people? What if I don't want other people?" The words hung in the air between us. Ethan looked at me, something complicated flickering in his green eyes. And for just a moment I thought he was going to say something important. Something that would change everything. Instead, he grabbed a slice of pizza. "Then don't date. Your life, your choice." I shouldn't have pushed. "Did you actually give Melissa my number?" "No, I couldn't." He stopped, took a breath. "No, I didn't." "Good," I said, and some of the tension eased from his shoulders. "Because I'm perfectly happy with how things are." Yeah. We ate pizza and watched a movie. And things felt almost normal again. Almost. Except now, I couldn't stop thinking about that moment, that split second when Ethan had looked at me like he was about to say something world-altering. What had he been about to say? Why couldn't he give Melissa my number? And why was I so relieved that he hadn't? I met Ethan's best friend Marcus on a Saturday afternoon. I'd been working on a design project when I heard voices from Ethan's apartment, laughter, and the clink of beer bottles. It was unusual. Ethan rarely had people over, and I'd gotten used to having him mostly to myself. I tried not to feel jealous about it. Tried and failed. An hour later, there was a knock on my door. Ethan stood there with another guy, tall, black, with a warm smile and an appraising look in his eyes. "Ryan, this is Marcus, my best friend from undergrad." "Marcus, this is Ryan, my neighbor I've been telling you about." "The famous Ryan?" Marcus shook my hand, his grip firm. "Ethan talks about you constantly. I was starting to think you were imaginary," he does. I glanced at Ethan, who suddenly looked very interested in my doorframe. "Oh yeah. Ryan said this. Ryan did that. Ryan and I went here. Ryan likes this movie." It's like having a podcast dedicated to one person. Marcus was grinning, clearly enjoying Ethan's discomfort. "Anyway, we're ordering Thai food and having a Marvel movie marathon. Want to join?" I looked at Ethan, trying to gauge if he actually wanted me there, or if Marcus was just being polite. But Ethan was nodding, a hopeful expression on his face. "Yeah, come over. It'll be fun." It was fun. Marcus was hilarious, with a wicked sense of humor and an endless supply of embarrassing stories about Ethan's college years. We sprawled across Ethan's living room, Marcus in the armchair, Ethan and me sharing the couch, close enough that our shoulders kept brushing. "So, Ryan," Marcus said during a lull in the movie, "Ethan tells me you're single. How is that possible? You're a good-looking guy in a city full of single women." Marcus, Ethan's voice held a warning. "What?" "I'm just saying, if I were into dudes, I'd definitely shoot my shot." I laughed, feeling my face heat up. "I'm just not really focused on dating right now. Work keeps me busy, and he spends all his free time with me." Ethan finished, something unreadable in his voice. Marcus looked between us, his expression thoughtful. Interesting. What's interesting?" I asked. "Nothing. Just interesting." He turned back to the movie, but I caught him glancing at us several times over the next hour, always with that same considering look. Later, after the movies ended and we were cleaning up, I stepped onto the balcony for some air. Through the open sliding door, I heard Marcus and Ethan talking in the kitchen. "You have to tell him, man." Marcus's voice was low but intense. "I can't. He's straight, Marcus. He's my neighbor and my best friend, and I can't risk losing that." "How do you know he's straight?" "Have you asked?" "He doesn't need to say it. He talks about women. He clearly hasn't considered any other option. And honestly, even if by some miracle he wasn't straight, why would he be interested in me? I'm just the guy next door. It's just the guy next door that he spends literally all his time with. The guy he looks at, like Marcus, please, just drop it." I stepped back inside, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. They both looked up, and I saw panic flash across Ethan's face. "I should get going," I said, my voice sounding strange to my own ears. "Early morning tomorrow?" Ryan Ethan started. "Thanks for including me tonight." "It was great meeting you, Marcus." I left before either of them could say anything else, closing my door and leaning against it, trying to process what I'd just heard. Ethan had feelings for someone. Someone he thought was straight. Someone he spent all his time with. Someone he thought wouldn't be interested in him. The pieces were there, forming a picture I wasn't ready to look at. So I did what I'd always done. I pushed it away, buried it deep, convinced myself I'd misunderstood. Ethan was my friend. Just my friend. The fact that my chest felt tight and my hands were shaking was just surprise. That's all. Just surprise. After that night, not obviously, not dramatically, but in small ways that accumulated, Ethan started studying in the library more often, instead of on his balcony. Our movie nights became less frequent. When we did hang out, there was a carefulness to it, like we were both trying not to say or do the wrong thing. I told myself it was fine. Told myself he was just busy with his thesis. Told myself the ache I felt when I stepped onto my empty balcony, evening after evening, was just loneliness, not something more specific. Emma called one night and found me in a mood. "What's wrong?" she asked immediately. Nothing. Why would something be wrong? Because you have that tone. The one you get when you're lying to yourself about something? I sighed. Ethan's been distant lately. I think maybe he's pulling away, trying to get some space from me. Did you two have a fight? Not exactly. It's complicated. I hesitated, then found myself telling her about the conversation I'd overheard. About Marcus and the things that were said. I think Ethan has feelings for someone. Someone he can't have. And how does that make you feel? What do you mean? It makes me feel bad for him. He's my friend. I want him to be happy, Ryan. Emma's voice was gentle but firm. How does it really make you feel? The thought of Ethan with someone else? I opened my mouth to give her the easy answer, the safe answer. But something about the way she asked the question, the way she was really asking, made the walls I'd built crack just a little. It makes me feel sick, I'd admitted quietly, like someone's reaching into my chest and squeezing. And I know that's selfish, because Ethan deserves to be with whoever he wants. But the thought of him looking at someone else the way I stopped. Realizing what I'd almost said, the way he looks at you, Emma supplied. I don't know what you're talking about. Ryan, come on. I've seen the pictures you've posted. I've heard how you talk about him. And more importantly, I've noticed how you don't talk about anyone else. When was the last time you were even interested in dating someone? That's not it. Doesn't mean what are you so afraid of? The question hit like a punch to the gut. What was I afraid of? The answer came immediately before I could stop it. Everything. I was afraid of everything. Afraid of looking too closely at what I felt. Afraid of what it might mean. Afraid of losing Ethan if I acknowledged it. Afraid of not being who I'd always thought I was. I have to go, I said abruptly. Talk later, Em. I hung up before she could press further, but the damage was done. The question was lodged in my brain now, impossible to ignore. I thought about Ethan. I thought about him. About the way my day felt incomplete if I didn't see him. About how I'd memorized the sound of his laugh and the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled. About how I knew his coffee order and his favorite, movies and which architectural styles made him most passionate. About how I looked at him when he wasn't looking and felt my chest get tight with something. I'd been calling friendship, but that felt like so much more. About how the thought of him with someone else made me want to break things. No, I whispered to my empty apartment. Oh no, oh no, oh no. The next week was torture. I couldn't stop thinking about my conversation with Emma. Couldn't stop analyzing every interaction with Ethan. Couldn't stop the growing realization that I'd been lying to myself for months. Watched him leave for his morning run and felt my stomach flip. I heard his voice through the wall and felt warmth spread through my chest. I saw him in the hallway and wanted nothing more than to close the distance between us. To touch him, that's when I'd force myself to stop thinking about it. Because Ethan was a man. I was supposed to be attracted to women. I'd always assumed I'd end up with a woman someday, get married, have the normal life everyone expected. The fact that I'd never actually felt strongly about any woman I'd dated, I'd just chalked that up to not meeting the right person yet. But what if the right person had been living next door all along? What if the reason I'd never felt that spark with anyone else was because I'd been saving all my capacity to feel for someone I'd told myself I couldn't have? I was spiraling. I knew I was spiraling, and I had no idea how to stop. On Friday evening, I heard Ethan's sliding door open. For the first time in days, he was on his balcony. I sat frozen in my living room, staring at my own balcony door, debating. I could go out there, try to talk to him, maybe even tell him. What? That I'd figured out I had feelings for him, but I wasn't sure if it was real or just confusion. That I'd been having thoughts about him that definitely weren't platonic, but I had no idea what to do with them. Before I could decide, I heard another voice, female, laughing. I moved to the window before I could stop myself, careful to stay hidden. Ethan was on his balcony with a woman, petite, dark hair, probably from one of his classes. They were sharing a bottle of wine, and she was touching his arm while she talked, leaning in close. The jealousy that hit me was like a physical force. I wanted to march out there and what? I had no claim on Ethan, no right to feel possessive. He was allowed to have women over, allowed to date, allowed to move on with his life. But God, it hurt. I watched them for longer than I should have, torturing myself. Watched her laugh at something he said. Watched him smile at her, that warm smile I'd thought was reserved for me. Watched as the sun set and they stayed out there, talking and drinking and existing in a world I suddenly felt locked out of. Eventually I forced myself away from the window. Forced myself to go to bed. Forced myself to accept that whatever I'd been feeling, whatever I'd been starting to realize, it was too late. Ethan had moved on. He was building a life that didn't revolve around me, and I needed to do the same, which is why. When Emma called the next morning with her plan to set me up on a blind date, I said yes. Her name is Jessica, Emma said excitedly. She's 19, works in marketing at a startup, super sweet and fun. I met her at a networking event and immediately thought of you. Great, I said, my voice flat. You don't sound excited. I'm excited, just tired. I wasn't tired. I was exhausted, emotionally wrung out from days of trying not to think about Ethan while thinking about nothing but Ethan. Dates on Saturday. I'm texting you the restaurant details. Wear the blue shirt, it brings out your eyes. After we hung up, I sat staring at my phone. A date. I was going on a date with a woman. This was good. This was what I was supposed to be doing. This would prove that what I'd been feeling for Ethan was just confusion. Just the intensity of a close friendship mistaken for something else. This would fix everything. Monday evening. I ran into Ethan in the mailroom. We'd barely spoken in days, and the silence between us felt like a living thing. Hey, he said, his voice carefully casual. How have you been? Good. Busy with work. I fumbled with my mailbox key. How's your thesis coming? It's getting there. Defense is in a few weeks. He paused. I saw the woman from Friday night. On your balcony. He looked surprised, then uncomfortable. Yeah, that was Melissa. From my urban planning class. We're working on a group project together. Melissa. The woman he'd mentioned before, who apparently thought I was cute? The jealousy must have shown on my face because Ethan quickly added, It's not we're just friends. She has a boyfriend. Oh. I felt stupid for how relieved that made me. That's good. We stood in awkward silence for a moment. Then Ethan said, So, any exciting plans coming up? This was it. The moment I could tell him about the date proved to both of us that I was moving on. That things between us were normal and platonic and exactly what they should be. Actually, yeah. My sister set me up on a blind date. Saturday night, I watched his face carefully. Saw something flicker in his eyes. Something that looked like pain, quickly covered. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. That's great, Ryan. Really great. You should. You should get out there, meet people. His voice was too bright, too forced. What's her name? Jessica. I don't know much about her. Just that Emma thinks we'd be compatible. I'm sure you will be. He grabbed his mail without looking at it. I should get going. Good luck with the date. He was gone before I could respond, leaving me alone in the mailroom with the hollow feeling that I'd just made a terrible mistake. But it was too late to take it back. The words were out there. The date was set. I had no good reason to cancel. I spent the rest of the week in a fog, going through the motions of work and life while my mind was elsewhere. Ethan's balcony stayed empty. We didn't run into each other again. It was like he was actively avoiding me, and I couldn't blame him. On Thursday evening, I was taking out the trash when I heard voices from Ethan's apartment. His door was slightly ajar, and though I knew I shouldn't listen, I couldn't help myself. Just tell him how you feel. That was Marcus's voice. I can't. Ethan sounded defeated in a way I'd never heard before. He's going on a date with a woman tomorrow. That pretty much answers any question I might have had, doesn't it? Or maybe he doesn't know there's another option. Maybe he needs someone to show him what, Marcus? That his neighbor has been pining for him like a teenager? That every time he talks about dating women, I feel like I'm dying inside. That I've structured my entire life around being near him, and now he's going to meet someone and fall in love, and I'll have to watch it happen from 3 feet away. My heart was pounding so hard I thought they might hear it through the wall. You're assuming a lot, Marcus said gently. Have you seen the way he looks at you? He looks at me like a friend. Because that's what I am. That's all I'll ever be. Ethan, no. I'm done talking about this. He's going on his date. He's going to have a great time, and I'm going to be happy for him. That's what friends do. I forced myself to move, to walk past his door and down the stairs to the trash room. My hands were shaking so badly, I could barely grip the bag. All the pieces I'd been trying not to see suddenly clicked into place with devastating clarity. It was me. I was the someone he'd been talking about. The someone he had feelings for. The someone he thought was straight and uninterested. And tomorrow night was going on a date to prove him right. I couldn't eat. Couldn't focus. Couldn't stop replaying Ethan's words in my head. Every time he talks about dating women, I feel like I'm dying inside. What had I done? In my confusion, in my fear of examining my own feelings, I'd been hurting him. How long had he been feeling this way? How many times had I talked about women, or dates, or my supposed future with a wife and family, not knowing that each word was a knife? I had to talk to him. Had to tell him something. I wasn't sure what yet. But I couldn't let him keep thinking I didn't know. Didn't care. I knocked on his door at 7 p.m. No answer. I tried again at 8. Still nothing. His car was in his spot. His lights were on, but he wasn't answering. I finally resorted to texting. Can we talk? The response came 5 minutes later. Busy tonight. Have a good time tomorrow. I stared at the message, at the finality in it, and felt something inside me crack. He was shutting me out, protecting himself in the only way he knew how. And I couldn't even blame him. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of Ethan moving around his apartment. So close, and yet impossibly far away. I thought about canceling the date with Jessica. Thought about knocking on Ethan's door and telling him everything I'd been realizing. Everything I'd been feeling. But I didn't. Because the truth was, I still didn't know what I was feeling. Yes, I had some kind of feelings for Ethan's strong feelings. But what if they were just friendship intensified by proximity? What if I was confusing deep platonic love with romantic attraction? What if I ruined everything by acting on feelings I didn't fully understand? And beyond that, there was the bigger question. Even if what I felt for Ethan was real, what did that make me? I'd never been attracted to men before. Never even considered it. Did one person change your entire understanding of yourself? I fell asleep without answers, and when I woke up Saturday morning, Ethan's apartment was silent. He'd left early, probably deliberately. Avoiding me. Avoiding the neighbor who was about to go on a date that would break his heart. I changed shirts 3 times. The blue one Emma had recommended first, then a gray one, then back to the blue. I styled my hair, applied cologne, put on my good watch. Went through all the motions of preparing for a date while feeling like I was preparing for a funeral. I left for the restaurant at 6:30, giving myself extra time in case I needed to collect myself. As I walked to my car, I glanced up at Ethan's apartment. The curtains were drawn, no sign of life. He was in there somewhere, probably hearing me leave. Probably thinking about where I was going and who I was meeting, probably hurting. The drive to the restaurant was a blur. I parked, checked my reflection in the rearview mirror, practiced smiling. You can do this, I told myself. Just get through dinner. Be polite, be present, give Jessica a fair chance. Maybe Emma was right. Maybe this was what I needed. Jessica was already there when I arrived, sitting at a table near the window. She was exactly as Emma had described, pretty in a girl-next-door way, with dark blonde hair and a warm smile. She stood when she saw me, and we did the awkward first date greeting. You must be Ryan. Emma showed me your pictures, but you're even cuter in person. Thanks. You look great too. The words came automatically. The script I'd learned for these situations. We sat, ordered drinks, made small talk about our jobs in the city and mutual acquaintances through Emma. Jessica was nice, funny, easy to talk to. Any guy would be lucky to be on a date with her. So why did I feel like I was acting in a play? Going through the motions of a role I didn't actually want? So Emma tells me you're pretty much a homebody, Jessica said as our meals arrived. That's actually kind of refreshing. Most guys I meet just want to party every weekend. Yeah, I definitely prefer quiet nights in, I agreed, pushing pasta around my plate. Usually just hanging out on my balcony or watching movies with my neighbor. Your neighbor? She raised an eyebrow playfully. Should I be jealous? I forced a laugh. No, it's not like that. Ethan's just a friend. We hang out sometimes, that's all. But even as I said it, I knew it was a lie. Ethan wasn't just a friend. He was the person I thought about when I woke up and when I fell asleep. The person whose opinion mattered more than anyone else's. The person whose smile could make a bad day good and whose absence could make a good day feel empty. The person I'd been falling for without realizing it. One ordinary moment at a time. You okay? Jessica's voice pulled me back. You kind of zoned out there. Sorry, yeah, I'm fine. Tell me more about your work. She did, talking about marketing campaigns and startup culture, and I tried to focus. I really did. But my mind kept drifting back to Ethan's words. I've structured my entire life around being near him. Had I done the same thing without knowing it? Chosen remote work partly because it meant more time on the balcony? Turned down invitations from college friends because I'd rather be home where Ethan was? Made decisions based on maximizing the time we'd spend together? Yes, the answer was yes. I'd been doing exactly that, all while telling myself it was just friendship. Ryan, I'm getting the feeling you're not really present right now, Jessica said gently. Did I do something wrong? No. God, no. You're great, Jessica. Really? This isn't about you at all. Is it about your neighbor? I looked up sharply. What? Ethan, the friend you mentioned. When you talked about him, your whole face changed. Got softer. And since then, you've been somewhere else entirely. She smiled, but there was understanding in it. I've been on enough bad dates to recognize when a guy's heart isn't in it. Should have denied it. Should have apologized and tried harder to be present. But I was so tired of lying to her, to myself, to everyone. I think I just realized I have feelings for him, I admitted quietly. Tonight, sitting here with you, being on this date, I finally let myself see what's been right in front of me for months. And what's that? That I'm in love with my neighbor. That I have been for a while. That every date I've been on, every woman I've tried to be interested in, they never stood a chance because I'd already given my heart away without knowing it. Saying it out loud made it real. Undeniably, terrifyingly real. I was in love with Ethan Carter. I was in love with a man. And nothing about my life was going to be the same. Jessica reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Then what are you doing here with me? I don't know. I think I was trying to prove to myself that you were wrong. That my feelings for Ethan were just friendship. Just confusion. But sitting here, all I can think about is getting back to him. Telling him, even if it's terrifying, even if it changes everything. Then you should go. She pulled out her wallet, but I waved her off. I've got this. I'm sorry, Jessica. You deserve better than a date who spends the whole time thinking about someone else. Hey, she waited until I looked at her. Don't apologize for figuring out what you want. That's actually pretty brave. Most people spend their whole lives avoiding that kind of honesty. We split the check despite my protests, said goodbye in the parking lot. She hugged me briefly and whispered, "Good luck." I hope he feels the same way. Me too, I whispered back. The drive home felt both endless and too short. My mind was racing, trying to figure out what to say, how to say it. Should I tell him everything? Should I start with an apology? Should I just kiss him and hope he understood? By the time I pulled into my parking spot, my hands were shaking. Ethan's car was there, his apartment lights on. He was home. Probably thought I was still on my date, still with Jessica, still proving that he'd never have a chance. I had to fix that. Right now. I took the stairs 2 at a time, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. Stood outside Ethan's door for just a moment, gathering courage. Then I knocked. No answer. I knocked again, harder. "Ethan, I know you're in there. Please, I need to talk to you." Nothing. But I could sense him on the other side of the door, could feel his presence like a magnetic pull. "Ethan, please. It's important." Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the door opened. Ethan stood there in sweatpants and a t-shirt, his hair messy like he'd been running his hands through it. His eyes were red-rimmed, and I realized with a jolt that he'd been crying. "Shouldn't you be on your date?" His voice was flat, emotionless. "I left early. I need to talk to you. I don't think that's a good idea right now. Please." I heard the desperation in my own voice. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. He stepped back reluctantly, letting me in. His apartment was dark except for one lamp. And I could see the evidence of a rough evening, empty beer bottles on the counter. His thesis materials scattered across the floor like he'd been pacing. "How was it?" he asked, his back to me. "Your date with Jessica?" "It was fine. She was nice." "Good. That's good." He still wasn't looking at me. "Is that what you came to tell me? That your date went well?" "No. I came to tell you that I overheard you. That day in the mailroom, when Marcus was here, and again last night." Ethan went completely still. "What exactly did you hear?" "Enough. Enough to know that you have feelings for me. Enough to know that you think I don't feel the same way?" He finally turned, and the look on his face was devastating raw pain mixed with resignation. "And you came here too." "What?" "Let me down easy. Tell me that we can still be friends despite the fact that I've been pathetically in love with you this whole time." "You're in love with me?" The words came out whisper soft. "Yes, Ryan. Yes, I'm in love with you. I've been in love with you for over a year. Does that answer your question?" His voice cracked. "I'm in love with my straight neighbor who goes on dates with women and talks about his future wife and family, and has never once looked at me as anything more than a friend. So congratulations. Now you know. You can leave now. I'm not straight." The words hung in the air between us. Ethan stared at me like I'd just spoken a foreign language. "I'm not straight. Or if I am, then I'm the worst straight guy in history because I'm completely in love with you." His expression cycled through disbelief, hope, fear, all in the span of seconds. "Ryan, don't. Don't say things you don't mean just because you feel bad for me. I can't handle that. I'm not." I took a step toward him, my heart racing. "I mean every word. Tonight, sitting with Jessica, I finally let myself see what I've been avoiding for months. Maybe longer? I'm in love with you, Ethan. I'm in love with the way you smile when you talk about architecture, the way you stress bake at midnight, the way you listen like every word I say matters, the way you make me feel like the best version of myself. But you've always dated women because I thought that's what I was supposed to do, because I didn't let myself consider any other option, because I was scared of what it would mean if I admitted that the person I couldn't stop thinking about was you." I moved closer. "And yeah, I'm scared now. Terrified, actually, because this is all new to me, and I'm probably going to mess up a lot. But I'm more scared of losing you, of letting you think for one more second that you're just my friend when you're so much more than that." Ethan's breathing had gone ragged, How much more? Everything. You're everything to me. Ryan's voice broke on my name. I know I'm late. I know I've wasted so much time being blind and stupid. I know I've hurt you by talking about dating women when you were right there, right next door. Being everything I didn't know I was looking for. I was close enough now that I could see the tears starting to form in his eyes. But if you'll let me, I want to make up for it. I want to be with you. I want to stop pretending that what I feel is anything other than love. You're serious? It wasn't quite a question. More like he was testing the words, trying to believe them. I've never been more serious about anything in my life. But what if you're confused? What if this is just you reacting to finding out how I feel? What if you change your mind and I kissed him? I'd been thinking about it for days, maybe weeks, maybe longer than that. But nothing could have prepared me for the reality of it, the soft press of his lips, the sharp inhale of breath, the way his hands came up to grip my arms like he was afraid I might disappear when we broke apart. Both breathing hard, Ethan looked dazed. I just kissed you? And I want to do it again. And again. For as long as you'll let me. I cupped his face in my hands, feeling the slight stubble on his jaw, the warmth of his skin. I'm not confused, Ethan. For the first time in months, I'm completely clear. You are what I want. Not some hypothetical woman I'm supposed to end up with. Not the life I thought I was supposed to live. You. Say that again, he whispered, his voice rough with emotion. You. I want you. I choose you. I love you. This time when we kissed, it was different, desperate and hungry and full of months of suppressed longing. Ethan's hands tangled in my hair, pulling me closer, and I pressed him back against the wall. Learning the shape of his mouth, the taste of him, the sounds he made when I kissed him just right. We broke apart eventually, both breathing like we'd run a marathon. Ethan's eyes were bright, his lips swollen, and he looked young and vulnerable and so beautiful it made my chest ache. I can't believe this is happening, he said, his fingers tracing the line of my jaw like he was memorizing it. I've imagined it so many times, but I never actually thought believe it. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. What about Jessica? I told her the truth, that I spent the entire date thinking about you, that I was in love with someone else. I smiled. She was surprisingly understanding about it. You told her you were in love with me? Ethan looked stunned. Did. Said it out loud for the first time. And once I did, I knew I couldn't spend another minute away from you. Had to come back. Had to tell you. Had to. I kissed him again, softer this time. Had to do that? Ethan laughed, the sound bright and joyful, and so different from the broken tone he'd had when he opened the door. So what happens now? Now, I thought about it. Now I think we take things slow. We figure this out together. I'm new to this, to being with a man, to being in a real relationship. I'm probably going to need patience and understanding, and a lot of communication. I can do that. His arms wrapped around my waist, holding me close. I've waited this long. I can wait a little longer to do things right. But maybe not too slow, I added, grinning, because I've got about 6 months of wanting to touch you to make up for. Only 6? He teased. Okay, maybe longer. Maybe since the day we met and you helped me carry that couch and I noticed how strong your arms were, you noticed my arms. I noticed everything about you. I just didn't let myself acknowledge what it meant. I rested my forehead against his. But I'm acknowledging it now. You, me, it's real. It matters. You matter more than anything else in my life. We stayed like that for a long time, wrapped around each other, making up for months of distance and misunderstanding. Eventually, we moved to the couch, talking about everything, how long he'd been feeling this way, all the moments I'd missed, the signs I'd been too blind to see. That day with the cookies, Ethan said, his head on my shoulder, my fingers playing with his hair. When I showed you my thesis, I almost told you then. You were looking at my work with such genuine interest and admiration. I thought maybe, just maybe, you could feel something for me too. But then you started talking about how talented I was, how lucky some girl would be to have a guy like me, and I realized you'd never considered I might be interested in men. In you? I'm sorry, I said quietly. For all the times I was thoughtlessly straight, for assuming things, for not seeing you. You see me now. Do. And I'm not looking away again. Dating Ethan was everything I'd never known I wanted. It was easy and comfortable, but also exciting and new. We took things slow. Physically, lots of kissing, lots of touching, but nothing more yet. I needed time to get comfortable with this new version of myself. Ethan was patient and understanding in a way that made me love him even more. We told people gradually. Emma was insufferable with her "I told you so" energy. She claimed she'd actually been trying to make me realize I didn't want to date women. So in her mind, her plan had worked perfectly. Marcus welcomed me with a hug so tight it cracked my back, and a warning that he'd been threatening to give for weeks hurt Ethan. Face consequences, the building's residents mostly. Reacted with variations of finally, and we wondered when you two would figure it out, which was both embarrassing and sweet. My parents were harder. They lived across the country, and we weren't particularly close. But I called them because it felt like something I should do. Mom was confused, but trying. Dad was silent for a long moment before saying he needed time to process. It stung, but I had Ethan and Emma and Marcus, and that was enough. Our balconies were still our favorite place. Now, instead of sitting on opposite sides of the divider, I'd climb over to his side, or he'd come to mine, and we'd curl up together, watching the sunset, talking about our days, stealing kisses when we thought none of the other residents could see. I have my thesis defense next week, Ethan said one evening, his fingers tracing patterns on my arm. I'm terrified. Hey, you're going to be amazing. Your design is incredible. You have to say that. You're my boyfriend. Boyfriend? The word still sent a thrill through me every time I heard it. I'd say it even if I wasn't. Your work is genuinely brilliant, Ethan. He turned to look at me, something serious in his expression. What happens after I graduate? I'll be looking for architecture jobs, which could be anywhere. What if I have to leave the city? The thought of Ethan leaving, of losing this daily closeness, made my chest tight. Then I guess we figure it out. Long distance, if we have to. Or, I hesitated. Or maybe I come with you. Ryan, you can't plan your whole life around me. Why not? You said you'd structured your life around being near me. Why can't I do the same? I cupped his face, making him look at me. I'm a remote designer. I can work from anywhere. And anywhere sounds pretty good as long as you're there. You're serious about you? Always. He kissed me then, deep and slow and full of promise. When we broke apart, he was smiling that smile. I loved the one that lit up his whole face and made his eyes crinkle. I love you, he said. I know we've said it before, but I need you to know. I'm completely, utterly, hopelessly in love with you. Good, I said, pulling him closer. Because I'm completely, utterly, hopelessly in love with you too. And I'm done pretending otherwise. Done avoiding what I feel? Done being afraid? What changed? Ethan asked softly. Between being afraid and being here with me? I thought about it. You did. You were brave enough to ask why not me. And that question changed everything. It made me look at my life and realize I'd been living for some imagined future instead of the present that was right in front of me. It made me choose myself, the real me. The one who loves you over the version I thought I was supposed to be. Best question I ever asked. Best question you ever asked, I agreed. We stayed on the balcony until the stars came out, talking about everything and nothing. About his thesis, defense, and my latest design project. About Marcus's new boyfriend and Emma's job prospects. About our families and our fears and our hopes for the future. I never thought I could have this, Ethan admitted as the night grew late. I spent so long thinking that what I wanted was impossible. That I'd have to settle for being your friend, for loving you from a distance, for pretending it was enough. And now? Now I have everything I ever wanted. He laced his fingers through mine. I have you, really? Have you? Get to kiss you and hold you and fall asleep next to you. Get to be the person you choose every single day. Every single day, I promised. For as long as you'll have me, that might be a very long time. I'm counting on it. Ethan's thesis defense was brilliant. I sat in the back of the room, watching him present his community-centered design with passion and expertise, fielding questions from his committee with confidence. When they congratulated him and told him he'd passed with honors, I had to stop myself from cheering out loud. We celebrated that night with Marcus and a few of Ethan's classmates at our favorite restaurant. Ethan kept his hand on my knee under the table, and every time I looked at him wearing his button-up shirt, his hair slightly messed up from running his hands through it, his eyes bright with happiness, I felt my chest swell with pride and love. "Speech," Marcus called out when dessert arrived. Ethan groaned, but stood, raising his glass. Okay. I want to thank all of you for your support through the past 2 years. Grad school is brutal, and I couldn't have done it without you. But especially, he looked at me, and something soft and warm entered his expression. I want to thank Ryan for believing in my work even when I didn't, for being patient while I figured out how to balance school and everything else, for being the reason I wanted to design spaces where people could feel safe and welcome and themselves. One of his classmates cooed. I felt my face heat, but I couldn't stop smiling. Later, when we were back at our apartment, we'd officially moved in together 2 weeks ago. Combining our places into a slightly larger unit, Ethan pressed me against the door and kissed me breathless. Thank you, he murmured against my lips, for being there today. For being here now. For being you. There's nowhere else I'd rather be. We'd finally taken things further physically a few weeks ago, and it had been everything I'd hoped for and nothing like I'd expected. Different from being with women, yes, but in ways that felt right and natural and perfect, because it was with Ethan, because it was love combined with desire, intimacy combined with trust. That night, we celebrated his graduation properly, taking our time, learning each other all over again, and afterward, lying tangled together in our bed, I felt a completeness I'd never experienced before. I got a job offer, Ethan said quietly into the darkness. I tensed slightly. Where? Here, in the city. It's with a sustainable architecture firm that does exactly the kind of work I want to do. Community-focused, environmentally conscious, socially responsible. Relief flooded through me. Ethan, that's amazing. You don't mind? That I'm not moving across the country for some prestigious position? Mind, I'm thrilled. Selfishly thrilled that I get to keep you here with me. I propped myself up on my elbow to look at him. But more than that, I'm proud of you for choosing work that aligns with your values instead of just chasing prestige. I learned that from you, he said. Watching you do work you love, building a career on your own terms. It made me realize I could do the same. We're good for each other, I said, kissing his forehead. Yeah, he agreed, pulling me close. We really are. You're going to hate me, I said for the 100th time as we drove upstate to meet Ethan's parents. They're not going to hate you. They're going to love you because I love you. Ethan reached over to squeeze my hand. And because you're lovable, and because Mom's been bugging me to bring you home for months, what if I say something wrong? What if I'm too obviously new at this? What if, Ryan? Ethan pulled into a rest stop and turned to me. Breathe. You're going to be fine. My parents are good people. They've known I was gay since I was 16. They've been waiting for me to find someone who makes me happy. You make me happy. That's all that matters to them. I make you happy? I knew the answer, but I needed to hear it again. Stupidly happy. Annoyingly happy. So happy that Marcus makes gagging sounds when we're too cute. Kiss me softly. So yes, you make me happy. And that's what my parents will care about. He was right. Mary and Thomas Carter were warm and welcoming from the moment we arrived. Mary hugged me like I was already family. And Thomas shook my hand with a firm grip and a smile that looked just like Ethan's. So you're the neighbor who finally made our son smile again, Mary said, leading us into their cozy house. We'd started to think he'd forgotten how, Mom, Ethan protested, but he was grinning. Over dinner, they asked about my work and my family and how Ethan and I had gotten together. I told them the whole story, the blind date, the realization, the confrontation at midnight. Mary got tears in her eyes when I described asking Ethan why not me. That's beautiful, she said. Both of you, being brave enough to say what you felt. Ethan was brave, I corrected. I was just finally catching up. Don't sell yourself short, Thomas said. It takes courage to recognize when you've been living for other people's expectations instead of your own truth. A lot of folks never manage that. That night, lying in Ethan's childhood bed, Mary had insisted we could share. Which was both sweet and slightly embarrassing. I felt a peace settle over me. This was what family could be: acceptance, warmth, love, without conditions. Thank you for bringing me here, I whispered to Ethan in the darkness. Thank you for coming. For being willing to meet them, to be part of my world. He kissed my temple. You're it for me, you know that? You're my person, my future, my home. You're mine too, I said. Whatever comes next, wherever life takes us, as long as I have you. I have everything I need. We were on our balcony, our favorite place, still watching the sunset on the anniversary of the day I'd come back from that blind date and finally told Ethan how I felt. 1 year of being together, of learning and growing and loving each other through every challenge and joy. I have something for you, Ethan said, pulling a small box from his pocket. My heart jumped. Ethan, it's not that, he said quickly, though his smile suggested it might be someday. Open it. Inside was a key brass, slightly worn, attached to a keychain that was a miniature architectural model of our apartment building. I made the keychain, he explained, but the key is to a house. A house I found that's perfect for us. 3 bedrooms, 1 for your design studio, 1 for my home office, 1 for us. A backyard. A neighborhood full of young families and artists and people like us. And, I turned the keychain over, a big balcony where we can watch the sunset together. Tears were already forming in my eyes. You want to buy a house? Together? I want to build a life with you. Really build it, not just live next door and pretend we have separate lives. I want a mortgage with both our names on it. I want to paint walls and plant gardens and host dinners for Marcus and Emma. I want everything with you, Ryan. Yes, I said without hesitation. Yes to all of it. The house, the life, the everything. He kissed me, soft and sweet and full of promise, and I thought about how far we'd come. From neighbors to friends to something so much more. From me being terrified of my own feelings to being ready to build a future together. Can I tell you something? I said when we broke apart. That night, when you stood in my doorway and asked why not me, that was the scariest and best moment of my life, because it forced me to look at what I'd been avoiding. Forced me to choose between the life I thought I should want and the life I actually wanted, and you chose me. I chose us, and I'd choose us again every single time. Every single time, he echoed. Pulling me close, we stayed on the balcony until the stars came out, talking about house hunting and paint colors and all the small details that make a life. And somewhere in the building, probably, there was another person just beginning their journey. Another neighbor who hadn't yet realized that the person next door might be exactly what they'd been searching for, but that was their story to discover. This was ours. It was perfect. The house was everything Ethan had promised, and more. We'd painted the walls together, argued about furniture placement, planted a garden that I killed 3 times before finally getting right. It was chaotic and imperfect and absolutely perfect. Emma visited frequently, bringing whoever she was dating that month and always commenting on how domestic we'd become. Marcus had moved in with his boyfriend 2 streets over, and our houses had become a haven for friends who needed a place where they could be themselves. My parents had come around eventually, slowly, with some bumps, but they'd come around. They visited for Christmas and awkwardly complimented our home and the life we'd built. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. Did you ever think we'd end up here? I asked Ethan one evening. We were on our big balcony. He'd been right about how perfect it was. Watching the sunset like we'd done 1,000 times before. Here specifically. No, but here together. I hoped. Even when it seemed impossible, I hoped. He squeezed my hand. You know what I think about sometimes? That blind date. How, if you'd really connected with Jessica, if you'd gone on that date and had a great time, maybe we never would have happened. We would have happened, I said firmly. Maybe not that night. maybe not for a while. But eventually I would have figured out what I was feeling. Eventually, I would have been brave enough to tell you. Because what we have, it's not chance or timing or luck. It's inevitable. You and me, we're inevitable. Inevitable, he repeated softly. I like that. Besides, I added with a grin, you were the one who was brave first. You asked the question I was too scared to even think about. You made me look at my life and realize what I was missing. So we're both brave, Ethan said, laughing. How about that? How about that? We sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the sky turn from blue to pink to purple. 2 years ago, I'd been on a blind date with a woman, going through the motions of a life I thought I was supposed to want. 2 years ago, Ethan had been in his apartment, heartbroken, convinced that what he wanted was impossible, and now here we were, in our house, living our life, loving each other more deeply than I'd known was possible. Thank you, I said quietly. For what? For asking why not me? For being brave enough to put your heart on the line? For giving me a reason to be brave too, Ethan turned to me, his green eyes bright in the fading light. You want to know something? I almost didn't do it. That night, I stood outside your door for 20 minutes trying to talk myself out of it, telling myself it would ruin everything, that you'd reject me, that some things are better left unsaid. What changed your mind? I realized that not saying it was killing me anyway, that watching you date other people, pretending I was fine with just being your friend, that was a different kind of death. A slower one, maybe, but just as final. He cupped my face in his hands. So I decided that if I was going to lose you anyway, I might as well lose you being honest. At least then, I'd know I tried. You didn't lose me, I whispered. You won me completely. I know. And every day I'm grateful that I was brave enough to ask, that you were brave enough to answer, that we both chose us over the easier path. Always, I promised. I choose us always. As the last rays of sunlight faded and the stars began to appear, we sat on our balcony, the place where our story had really begun. And I thought about all the blind dates I could have gone on, all the paths I could have taken, all the versions of myself I could have tried to be, but none of them would have led me here. To this perfect, unexpected happiness, to this life with this person, to this love that had transformed everything I thought I knew about myself. It all started with a question. Why not me? And the answer, I'd discovered, was simple. There was no reason at all. Just love. Just us. Just this perfect, imperfect, absolutely right life we'd built together. One conversation at a time. One sunset at a time. One brave choice at a time, until forever. The end. Did this story make your heart flutter? Did it make you believe in love again? Then don't leave without doing these 3 things. Smash that like button if you believe in the power of honest feelings and brave questions. Comment below and tell me, what would you do if someone asked, why not me? Have you ever realized you had feelings for someone you thought was just a friend? What was the bravest thing you've ever said to someone you love? I read every single comment, and I love hearing your stories. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our heartwarming LGBTQ love stories. We post new stories every week that will make you laugh, cry, and believe in the power of authentic love. Want more of Ryan and Ethan's story? Should I tell you about their house hunting adventures and the hilarious disasters that followed? When Ryan's conservative uncle came to visit and everything went wrong and then wonderfully right? The proposal that Marcus accidentally ruined, or did he actually make it better? Their journey to adoption and building the family they'd always dreamed of? Drop a comment saying part 2 if you want to see what happens next in their love story. If this gets 500 comments asking for more, I'll have part 2 ready for you next week. Share this story with someone who needs to hear that it's never too late to be honest about what you feel. Tag them in the comments. Remember, the bravest thing you can ever do is ask for what you want. Love is always worth the risk.